Fred Stewart chats with Michelle Boley and Taylor Gill about True North. Michelle Boley is an American filmmaker who has been working in the film and television industry since the mid-2000s. She has specialized in doing documentary-style features focusing on such timely topics as LGBT rights and Standing Rock. Taylor Gill is an American cinematographer who has been working in the television industry since the mid-2000s as well. Together, the two of them founded Rogue Kite Productions, which has produced satirical sketches and documentary shorts that have garnered more than 28 million views online. Their latest project is the Geo90 environmental series called True North, done in collaboration with the Young Turks. Flickering Myth had the privilege to speak with them, and I in turn had the honor to conduct it. I began by asking Ms. Boley if exploring climate change was a natural step in her career, given her past experiences of dealing with socio-political issues. I think it's always been something I've been very interested in. It was a fun challenge, and it definitely does tie in thematically with my previous projects. One of the things that makes True North unique is that it's not a conventional docudrama miniseries. It's more about several smaller, short anecdotal stories that build up to the larger topic of climate change. Given that this approach is significantly different from other documentaries in the post-Ken Burns era, I was curious as to what their reasons were for going with it. Ms. Boley explained, "What we were trying to do with this series was really make it more about those personal stories. We felt like what has been done in this space so far is that a lot of bigger picture narratives tell you specific facts related to the world in a whole way. It gives you info leaving you concerned but not connected to what it would be like to be there. Like, what is the human perspective to deal with climate change? To live in this place that is changing and will never return to its original state?" We tried to take a more personal approach to it so that you could get an understanding of these people who look after the environment and are passionate about it. These people made these choices to be there because they really like it and care about it. Having an idea for film project is one thing, but doing it is another. And in an environment as freezing as the glacial wilderness, the obstacles for shooting are even harder, particularly since most of the episodes are set outside in the cold, which can impair equipment. I asked Mr. Gill how he works to get past these challenges. "It's definitely a very unforgiving place to film, especially with such a small crew. So I constantly dealt with tech issues like lenses fogging up. There were other challenges like the difficult terrain and climbing up a mountain or glacier. Not to mention it was difficult to frame a shot as well. So we relied heavily on GoPros and smaller cameras. And in telling a story as personal as this, especially since it was mostly just the two of us, it was about making sure we had more angles for the edit." Mr. Gill related to me to one surprising problem that arose. "One of the issues that we had was with this drone camera, as operating it that far up north was a challenge. They're important to show the scale of the environments, but it was difficult because the magnetic poles caused interference. When it came to reducing their environmental footprint, Mr. Gill disclosed that the team actually relied on natural lighting for the most part. We were a very tiny crew. Didn't have much lights aside from an on-camera one, so we had to shoot during the day. Other gear was used to a minimum. We were out there with nature guides and sleeping in tents. We were working with people concerned for the environment, and that helped because the terrain is so sensitive. To give you an idea, a car had driven through there 30 years before and you could still see the tracks," added Ms. Boley. "As I said before, planning a shoot is one thing, but doing it is another. Prior to the interview, I was informed that almost immediately things didn't go according to plan, forcing the two to change course. I wondered what some of those specific deviations were. Ms. Boley answered, "When we headed out to make this show, the plan was to get on a sailboat that we had been booked on, and that was supposed to be the entire program, traveling with a group to do different research. But things change really fast in the Arctic. First, the ice didn't break up, then the boat got damaged, and other stuff happened that didn't allow us to even go on the boat. So we were already filming the peripheral stories, and what we ended up doing was using the contacts we had met locally. And it turned out to be amazing for the show. Honestly, I don't think anyone could understand this environment and its changes better than these scientists at the Polar Institute. Not only do they run the studies that come about of there, they also run the environment best. All the episodes are great and absolutely worth watching, but one that I found very enticing was the 7th episode, Ghost Town. As the title implies, it focused on an isolated community called Pyramidon, a former Soviet coal mining town that was abandoned, leaving few residents remaining. However, it is also the only episode that does not deal with global warming, leading me to ask why they dedicated an entire part of the miniseries to it. As I said, our goal in going up there was to tell the story of the Arctic. It wasn't to make every episode specifically about climate change, noted Ms. Boley. I think Pyramidon really tells the story of this island, Svalbard, and how difficult it can be to live there. And it really gives you an idea of what life was like at a different time. The entire island is built on coal, but this was another coal town, and living somewhere that remote must have been really hard. They're structured in a totally different way, and to me that was such an intriguing piece of history. A lot of settlements they tried to establish there have failed, and it's a really important story of the Arctic. And I connected with it. Still, living in a place with only a few other civilians can be a haunting experience. In the episode, comparisons were made between the town's only motel and the Overlook Hotel from The Shining. Yeah, it was very surreal. And just the feeling of knowing that you're one of less than 10 people in a couple hundred miles can be scary, especially when you don't have cell service, commented Mr. Gill. My last question to the duo concerned a recurring aspect of True North, which is its portrayal of polar bears as these forces of nature. On the outside, polar bears risk endangerment because of their habitat getting destroyed, but among these local populations they are a potential life-threatening danger. I therefore inquired into whether or not their depiction of polar bears was fair. "I don't think I viewed it from that perspective," said Ms. Boley. "We worked from an irrational fear of polar bears, and those parts of the people definitely come through. There's a reason you have to carry weapons because of the number of encounters. But they're also incredibly dedicated to preserving them. We tried to show that through these civilians. To understand the Arctic, you have to understand that they're striking a balance between living on two roads with no protection versus living like you would in the city." Overall, True North was a fascinating, fresh look into an ever-relevant topic. Congratulations to everyone involved on a job well done. Flickering Myth would like to thank Michelle Boley and Taylor Gill for speaking with us. True North can be viewed on the Geo90 website. Stewart.